name is Shauna Yuan. I am a physician scientist. What that means is that I am a board certified neurologist. My background in my clinical interest is in dementia. I work with Dr. Irene Lippman, and we've been working with the cause and the pathophysiology for the past few years on PSP and CBD. It's a great honor to be here. I'm very, very excited. I've been to a PSP meeting in the United States before, but this one is much larger, and I'm very excited about the possibility of collaboration with the groups in Europe and the US and internationally. So what I do is that as a physician scientist, I'm very keen on how to diagnose them early and how to find the right treatment for them. Because I believe that these neurodegenerative diseases are heterogeneous, and there are lots and lots of factors that affect how somebody gets CBD or PSP. They're all the spectrum of what's called a tauopathy, which is tau tends to aggregate. They get hyperphosphorylated. They get misprocessed. They don't work properly, and then they start aggregating, and then that's what we end up having disease. And why do certain people get this type of disease? So in fact, this is one of my posters here. I brought my colleague is presenting another one. What this one is doing is that recently we have learned a lot about these little things that are called vesicles. They get budded off from cells from the brain. And now these little vesicles, they're tiny little parts of the cell, which I think that is a harbinger of how we will learn about disease. It's basically have a little piece of brain floating around in the cerebrospinal fluid if you have undergone a spinal tap, or they can get it from the blood. And what we have found from these little vesicles, a little piece of the brain cells, have told us about we can diagnose about disease, and we can probably even possibly look at disease progression. And our interest in our laboratory is to understand what happens with these little vesicles, these little cells. And what we did is that we took patient cells, and then we add a part of tau that causes PSP and CBD, and then we put it back into the cells, and then we want to know from these disease cells what these little pieces of exosomes, they're called exosomes, these vesicles are doing. And then, so there's lots of evidence now that the exosomes mediate the propagation or disease progression in tauopathy, including PSP. And then they also are toxic. But what is that know is that what happens inside the brain. So we modeled it by injecting them into the mouse brain. And what we saw was that, quite surprisingly, is that not only that they are toxic to the cells, which you can see here, that the cells become, this is called flapping, that the cells, whereas the normal cell would have very nice branching of the neurons. However, in the cells that receive the exosomes from this, that have tau, the toxic tau, that they're now sick. They look sick. They're fragmented. What this tells us is that these exosomes are actually toxic. What we don't know exactly what the toxicity comes from, and now my lab is continuing to work on that. In addition, what they did was that once they were inside the mouse brain, we found that they started going to everywhere. Not only on one side of the brain, they went to the other side of the brain. And this is what's showing here, that we injected them in here, in this area where you see the little black, that's identifying the exosomes are, labeling this is labeled with tau, the toxic tau. But we also saw that they were elsewhere here, on the same side, and also in this area. But they also went to the opposite side, in the hippocampus, and also in the association cortex. This means that exosomes themselves, it's a little piece of derived from the sick cells, can actually go a long distance and perhaps causing the disease to progress. So we know now have a few clues what these exosomes are doing. And in the lab, we're continuing to work on how they propagate and how we can intervene that and then intercept that process. Therefore, we may be able to find some treatment and potentially even a cure for PSP and CBD. I want to thank them because we could not have done our work without their help. The patients and their families who are suffering from PSP and CBD, because we without their cooperation and them volunteering for research, we would not have been able to be where we are today. Some of my patients have donated their own cells so that we can progress on this research. I'm very, very thankful for their participation.